In this episode, we talk about how to prepare your child as best as you can for college and also prepare for the possibility they choose not to go. Let's get started. Let's get some new money, new problems. It's the New Money, New Problems podcast, a show for successful professionals searching for the tools they need to navigate financial opportunities and obstacles they've never seen. Negotiating compensation, purchasing your first investment property, helping your family with money, the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. New money brings new problems that require new solutions. Join us as we work through them together. I'm Brenton Harrison, and this is the New Money, New Problems podcast. Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed our conversation last week with Jack Wang, where we went into the details of what really moves the needle when it comes to getting your child into the school of their choice and hopefully, in an ideal scenario, getting them the most merit-based aid as possible. It was definitely an enjoyable conversation for me. As we go into the holidays and we have some content that's a little more lighthearted, what I thought we would do is kind of continue that conversation and speak conceptually or speak philosophically about just what college looks like for parents of young children in the first place. I've told you in episodes past about conversations that I've had with my wife about, like, how do we shepherd our son, or should we shepherd our son towards college? Is it even going to be a requirement or a value add when you see in this age of AI, either people who are not interested in certain careers or careers that are being completely wiped away? We don't know what things will look like 5, 10, 15 years from now at the rate that things are changing. And for all of those reasons, I have conversations with people who are basically putting all of their eggs in one basket when it comes to college planning, without even considering the fact that trades are something that are back in the picture as a popular choice for young kids who may not want to go the traditional route, but they do want to be an HVAC repair person or a plumber. And when you think about the things that you could potentially expose your child to, it's not that I would ever tell someone to discourage their child from going to college, but I do think that there's some benefit in looking at the way that the winds are shifting in terms of industries, in terms of your child's interest and their passions, and at least having an open mind for what life would look like if they decided not to go. It wasn't as closely connected, but there was an episode earlier in the podcast days for this podcast where I talked about the limitations of 529s, and I shared how I'm not anti-529, but I am anti putting a significant amount of money in a tool that can only be used for certain uses when that parent still has some steps that they need to take in their own planning and for their own finances. So this is in a similar keeping your options open vein. And I thought what would benefit this conversation is bringing actually someone else in, and that someone else is Principal Joseph Samuelson. Principal Samuelson is somebody that I came across after he was featured in several articles as the principal of a smaller school in rural Wyoming. And because of just the interests and the fields that are prevalent in that area, the interest of his students in potentially like pursuing fields of choice that don't necessarily require conventional college, what he did was he implemented a program and a curriculum that gave them the opportunity to experience some of those industries during the school day, and just had some really unique perspectives about what it looks like to not only expose your child or children to different types of industries, but to do so without actually discouraging them from going the college route. So I thought that he and his school do a great job of striking a balance between the two. I asked him to come on the podcast. He was gracious enough to accept. So after I stop talking and there's a brief 4 or 5 second transition, you'll hear my voice again introducing Principal Joseph Samuelson to the podcast. I hope you enjoy it. Principal Samuelson, welcome to the New Money, New Problems podcast.
Good to be here. Thank you.
You know, I was very interested in having this conversation with you. We've been talking as a team for a while before we reached out to you about this series that we're doing. And I came across you through the Business Insider articles that you were featured in about some of the unique things that you're doing at your school. So if you could just give like a broad level overview of how you're kind of exposing your students to potential pathways beyond college.
Yeah, so our school, we're in Upton, Wyoming. So we're a school of about 82 kids right now is where our enrollment's sitting. So a very, very small rural school, rural community. But we do things a little bit different. We operate from a personalized learning format where our goal is to try to reach every kid like at a personal level, an individual level. We want every student to kind of feel like they have autonomy over their own learning. I think that's kind of the emphasis for us is we want students to become lifelong learners. We want them to actually enjoy learning and consider that to be an important part of their life going forward. So we try to take into account what are their interests. Our teachers do a really good job of trying to factor that in. And I think one of the things that kids are always trying to do is kids are always wondering, like, how is this relevant to me? And so as a teacher, you're constantly trying to show that. And when you start talking about relevance, you're talking about like down the road, the future and things like that. And so I think this conversation eventually, our superintendent at the time, Summer Stevens, brought it forward to our principal at the time, Linda Crawford, and they talked about this idea, well, how do we make this more relevant? How do we do what's right for kids? And they went down the road of personalized learning where we're going to individualize every kid's curriculum, every kid's pathway based off of what their interests and what their needs are. And since then, it's just evolved into something really, really good where we have flexible schedules where we're letting kids kind of operate. Here's what classes I want to take, here's what I want to do. We work really, really closely with parents as well. And so they get in saying what their kids are going to be doing post-secondary as well, and just what things they're going to experience in high school. And we operate very, very flexibly to try to just give kids opportunities based on so whatever it is, what do you want to do, we will be flexible to try to make that happen for you. And we built our system to try to operate that way. So
I love the fact, relevant to this podcast, that it is a small school, because I think it's unlikely to go to a school of 1,000 kids and get them to do like personalized learning, or maybe it's not that impossible. But to me, it's very relevant to like what a parent exposes their child to in their individual household. So as you started implementing that program, you were very careful in the article that I read to say, like, you're not discouraging children from going to college, right? You're trying to say, hey, if there's something else you're interested in, let's talk about it. So as you started implementing that program, how did you start the process of saying, hey, I'm not telling you not to go to college, but what else might you be interested in? How does that start?
I think just like you said, like we don't operate from a question standpoint of like, do you want to go to college or not? I think a lot of schools have operated. There's a time period where that was like, are you going to college or not? That was the question versus, and we always try to ask kids, like, what do you want to do? What do you want? What are your dreams and things like that? And then from there, that guides your pathway. So many in our demographic here in our community, we have a very, very blue collar community, very rural. Heavy mining, heavy agriculture. And so our industries around here don't necessarily require college. And so I think our kids see that, and a lot of their parents maybe didn't go to college, but yet they have good careers, paying jobs. And so we just want to be mindful of that. But I think the question always comes down to, like, what do you want to do? Like, what are your goals for your life? And then you build out from there, what's going to happen. And so, well, college might be the right route for you. Maybe it's just a lot of times you just need a 2-year degree or maybe certification. But you start with the question, like, what do you want to do? And then you let that guide from there.
Can you give me an example of how you have integrated for a child who maybe is interested in a non-traditional path, quote unquote, non-traditional? Can you give me an example of like how you've integrated that into their personalized learning plan?
Yeah, so I'll use. There's a student from the article that you're referring to, but yeah, like in that article, like it's not necessarily, we're not discouraging. Sometimes the headlines are meant to seem one way, but no, we just want what's best for kids. There's one kid from that article though that we just really did not like school, didn't want to be in school, had different dreams and but he had an interest, and the kid loved hunting. Like, we're an outdoorsy community, we're a rural community, and the kid just loved hunting from a young age. And so our school counselor said, well, there are opportunities as outfitters and as guides. and maybe that's something you'd be interested in. And so his junior year, we reached out to a outfitter company, and we asked them, hey, we got a kid here that's interested in learning a little bit about this. Can he go and work with you? Um, and so they let him tag along, and he just spent a couple weeks. We let him leave school, and we told him, as long as you're staying caught up, as long as you're able to work hard and keep on, like, Dad, you can go do this. We'll let you go do this. And so we worked into his schedule to be able to operate that, to go do that. And he spent a couple weeks hunting and taking people out. And he came back with, took a guy out. He got a nice big muley buck, and the guy tipped him, and he's a couple $100 tip. And for a high school kid, that's really, really cool. But it's just, from that standpoint, as a small school, you know your kids really, really well. And in this kid's situation, like, he just loves outdoors, loves wildlife. So we had one teacher that created a class just for him and another student. These kids, they love wildlife. So she created a wildlife conservation course. And those two kids were in that course. But that's just kind of how we operate as a school, is we figure out, what do you want to do? And then we kind of build our school around that. And so, like, this kid, now he's going to be graduating this year. His outlook on school and on life I feel like, has changed, just because I think he has more direction on what he wants to do. And I think that's just kind of how we operate at school, is we just try to figure out, what do you want to do, and then how can we make that happen for you?
Do you think there are some children in your school? I would imagine that there may be some who get some exposure to a path that does lead to college, who still feel more supported in the fact that someone has allowed them to explore those interests. Have you found that?
Oh yeah. And there's students on that end too. We have one kid, just yesterday we had a Veterans Day program. Our elementary put on a Veterans Day program, and one of our senior girls was leading these kindergartners up onto the stage to do their little presentation or program. And you talk to her, because she's interested in being a teacher, which will require college. But we're giving her exposure, and she's going and she's working in these elementary classes, and she's getting to work with little kids and trying to get an idea of, like, maybe this is what I want to do. And likewise, we had a student who was interested in being a teacher. And so we went and talked to him about it. We talked about school. He went and visited school. And as he started going a little bit deeper, he started learning, like, you know what? I don't know if this is going to pay enough for me. And he since has kind of changed course. So that there's value on that end too. Our goal is that we can expose kids to things early enough. They can start making choices for themselves. And instead of, like, going to college for a year or two and figuring out, this isn't what I want to do, or I don't know where to go from here. That's what we want to avoid. We don't want kids to leave and in their first year or two start floundering and drowning and go, like, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? We want kids to leave here and feel comfortable with, like, here's my next route. Like, and be competent enough and skilled enough to be able to be successful with whatever that is, whether it be college or not. So I think there's, like, value in that, whether it's going to college or not. We just try to expose them to the careers and things that they're interested in, and then let them kind of choose for themselves.
You've been able to do this for a while now, and you've gotten, I'm sure, for an educator, even when you have your own children, the people who are, in your care become like your children, I'm sure, at least, some of them.
Yeah.
So my question is this: in seeing how these children have progressed and combining that with, like, our current educational system, the rising cost of college, seeing some who college is perfect for them, seeing some who it's not the right fit for, has it changed your perception at all for how you might, trend your own children in one way or the direction?
I mean, I think as a teacher and as an educator, you see our world's changing. It's wild. I told our students this, like, I grew up as an age where cell phones were just kind of coming into being. I remember life without cell phones, where a lot of our kids now, they've had smartphones, not just cell phones, but they have smartphones in their hands since they were in elementary school. And so the world's really changing. And I think as an educator now with my own children someday, we do talk to them about like, what do you want to do for school? What do you want to do someday? I got one kid that he says he wants to go to Alaska. My little girl says she wants to be a doctor. My boy wants to be a football player. And so, so we have those conversations, and me and my wife, we're not tied to necessarily, you got to go to college. We did, but we also know there's lots of careers out there. There's lots of things out there that you can be very successful in them, and they'll be good paying. And our goal is just to find what's going to be beneficial for kids. What do they want to do? And then help them be successful and navigate that road and that pathway the right way. And so, yeah, I think it has a little bit, and we don't necessarily believe that college is the end all be all for our own kids. We think that probably they will go that route, but we never have.
If you have a parent who's listening to this and they're trying to implement these things in their own home, right? I want to open up my child's eyes, or I just want to honor the interest that they say, that they would like to learn more about. How would you recommend in the home starting to say, hey, let's show them some opportunity. Let's investigate this a little further?
I think first and foremost, as parents, we need to value learning. And I think that's where we want to try to get our students to, and our own kids to. Like, you want your kids to value learning, because that's more important than any degree or diploma or anything like that. Because you got kids, you can graduate with a diploma and a degree, and not value learning. I've also seen people that are extremely never got a college degree, but just because they just love to learn. And so I think that as a parent is focusing on that first, is trying to instill those values and those skills in your kid. Value learning, and you try to help your kids become adaptable, because as our world changes, like that's going to be the biggest skill I think kids are going to need to have, is the ability to be self-sufficient, be able to pivot with this new AI coming around. Like, there are going to be careers that are going to go away, and there are going to be careers that are going to be open. And so you want to be, as a individual in the market, you want to be marketable enough that you can do lots of different things. I can learn on my own. And so I think as a parent, that should be the real big push. And then asking your kid, what are your dreams? What do you want to do? Are you excited to be excited to be a parent, or husband, or a wife, or a mom, and then what careers would allow you to do that, or be successful in there? What things do you like? Because you want to have a job you like as well. And so stuff like that, I think, is kind of where, as I think we want to push with our kids. We can instill the value of being a lifelong learner. I love to learn, and I can learn on my own. Then I can do a lot of it.
Wise words. Well, I appreciate you being willing to share your insights. I appreciate you for what you've built, and thank you for being a guest on the New Money, New Problems podcast.
So thank you for having me.
From New Money, New Problems, this was the New Money, New Problems podcast, a show for successful professionals searching for the tools they need to navigate financial opportunities and obstacles they've never seen.